And welcome to this. Well, I'm not sure how this one's going to go. It could go one of a couple of different ways, according to just how the PC at hand tackles this particular tale. One of the great joys of LAWhammer is, if we make mistakes, we live with them. So, that being the case, let's find out who is going to be working with us today.
Yeah. Speaking of living with mistakes.
Woo! You're blind to your problems, dude.
Boom.
Yay! Right, so we are going to be picking up this one right on the cusp of the previous episode, episode 44, which again, if you haven't watched already, go get back there and watch episode 44. It was relatively epic come the end. It had been a difficult day. From midnight almost, all the way through the hell at the beginning, right through to waiting. Nail-bitingly waiting for a potential attack throughout the course of that day. And it never came. Just never came. Never came. But that didn't change the tension that had sat there for that entire day. Some people had napped at points. Others just couldn't, feeling sick. Wizards had arrived. More wards were put up. Spengler, in particular, had spent a lot of time worrying over the wards, going back to wards that had already been put in place. The palace is also warded, or warded by older magics. But they've been broken in the past. Everyone was aware that whatever was here could fall. But it didn't. Boris paced. Nothing went wrong. Wizards arrived and left. Nothing went wrong. Concerns about a demon turning up never arrived. And come the bells finishing, a great deal of tension slowly ebbed. But it didn't ebb immediately, because there was that sense that maybe it might come late. But after about 20 minutes, everyone decided, yeah, no, that's it. It is time to withdraw, get some sleep. Get everything done. Father Luitpold, it turns out, gets a palatial apartment.
Nice. Come up in the world.
It's a pretty big space. And as he runs his finger along the walls, he feels, the bed and chairs. Oh, you can feel them. Windows over there, open glass, black, lack of reflection. He doesn't get the bonus of, there's coolness going beyond there. For him, that's a dead space. It's like a wall. But it echoes wrong. He's aware that it's a window. It echoes too cleanly in many respects. As he steps across it and almost walks into a rather quiet servant. One of the joys of being blind, let's call it a joy, is that sometimes he just completely misses folk. Alamenowith in particular, he's almost run into her like 4 or 5 times a day sometimes.
And Yume as well.
Yume's not that much better. And occasionally, he just bumps into people. Occasionally, he almost trips. Occasionally, he doesn't see things because he doesn't, see. Sense would be better. Occasionally, he doesn't sense things. He's not entirely aware of his surroundings, and sometimes it's altogether too easy to get used to what he can see, feel, sense, be aware of. And I feel like that's the limit.
Yeah, and I guess as well, because of the nature of it, like if he concentrates on things, he can perceive them slightly better, but that probably comes at the expense of awareness elsewhere.
Absolutely.
A bit like, like zooming in like that, but it gives him that tunnel vision to... Yeah.
And he's also aware that sometimes he senses things that aren't there. He will walk down the street and avoid things that aren't there. He doesn't know they're not there. But he does know that he might bump into someone else because of it and get an earful. There's no one there, mate. We're blind. These last few days have been a tumble of events. And it's in these quieter moments that we can remember that it was actually useful to have somebody to lead you. Mm-hmm. Nils, who's now gone. Servant Bash, who then makes apologies. Sorry, my lord. Okay, so it turns out you've been given a palatial apartment. 3 rooms
Wow.
for just you,
That's more rooms than he's ever had on his own before.
including a small set of quarters off to the side for servants, novitiates, and similar. That includes me. She says, I'll be a servant in your time here at the palace.
Lovely.
And she's not alone. She leads a small staff of 3 that are for you.
Wow. I mean, my armor probably does need cleaned. Can't think of what else you really need servants for, but
Clean my armor?
help me take it off and put it back on again, actually. Probably.
Absolutely. And you're knackered. Totally exhausted. You don't need as much sleep as other people anyway. And his sleep is often disturbed, sometimes deeply disturbed. But nevertheless, it has been a long day. And it's not because it's necessarily longer in time. It was the tension.
Although it kind of was, because we were up
all the way up to
Well, he had a very eventful day with you, mate. And then we were up all day and all night and all day and most of the night. So
tired.
Yeah.
But apparently, you've got to gather in the morning at the 9th bell. So
that's
clean,
proper.
good.
Yeah.
And the request is made as to whether you want to have all of your clothes washed, and it's fair to say that it seems to be less of a request, more of a they're questioning with the expectation of them already taking it away for you to go with.
Yes, and he's okay with that.
So they say, leave it there, we'll organise it all out. There's a bed down there for you if you wish to have one. There is everything you need. There's water for washing. There's fragrances. Dog wee. No, they're not that bad. It's just lavender water. And an entire wardrobe, which you actually thought was a room, sitting off to the side. And it
probably is about the size of his cabin, to be fair.
But bigger. Bed's bigger than his cabin.
Oh, I mean, I expected that.
And it's just comfy. And he gets woken up by the servant at 8:30.
Wow.
Apparently, they tried to wake him up half an hour ago.
That's probably the longest he's slept.
Forever.
Yeah.
Dreamless.
Well, feels like that's a little reward from Sigmar.
Dreamless sleep. He didn't know what was going to be going on later. He'd been obviously summoned by the Graph or whatever it is that they're going to do. And getting ferried from place to place by people is actually quite handy. Means it won't put a foot wrong. He's got somebody there. This, in addition to all of his senses, means that he's not just sure-footed. He's more sure-footed than he would be otherwise, because he's not avoiding things he doesn't need to avoid. And it's useful having not Nils, but someone else there again, because this place is full of little things that he feels are there that aren't.
Interesting.
Yeah, some of which he can sense palpably to his senses, but being guided, he can just like push his foot through it. Is it there? No, it's not. Something that he thought was there that isn't. And
what type of thing?
It's shape.
Yeah, so he doesn't really have a. So
yeah,
it's not,
quite.
What I'm thinking is, so it's not like in Ubersreich where he saw banners and things that weren't there.
No, Ubersreich seemed to almost glow to him, but here, quite the opposite. It's shape and form, and he's not sure why he's not seeing it clearly, but he's not.
Could be the wards.
Could be magical wards. That could make sense.
Could be dwarfy stuff.
Could be.
He doesn't perceive dwarfs very clearly.
Yeah. But there is something about Middenheim that means that he's not seeing it with the same clarity that he had when he was elsewhere.
I mean, it could even be as simple as, because he always perceives a silver flame, and he's much closer to it. It could literally just be his senses being drowned out by that.
Yeah.
The way that you can't see the stars when the sun's up. You know?
When that's light pollution.
Yeah.
So, nice and swiftly taken down, and somewhat of a shock. He's taken to a room that he doesn't know what it is, but it's a big one. There's pillars down the other side. The walls are deadened with sound, probably covered in furs. In fact, yeah, they're furs. He's somewhat slower in the uptake sometimes in comparison to everyone else. He gets there in the end. He sometimes has to think it through because everything feels strange, particularly in a room where there are so many people. The hubbub. And so many.
And he's always perceiving, like, beyond the things he's just perceiving that aren't there, he's also perceiving, like, supernatural things that are there.
Absolutely.
I always think about, like, the first couple of seasons of American Gods and the way in which Shadow would sometimes just, like, be seeing things that, like, were there that others weren't, just because he had this connection to the divine. And in the same way,
it's exactly like that. Exactly like that. But again, it's shadowy here. Appropriately. Shadowy. And the people, of which there's a lot, and he is pulled up towards what he feels is the depth of the room and probably near the front. And he actually has to take a moment to gather his thoughts because he can hear so many, and it's a bit too much. He hasn't been in a large, enclosed crowd for some time.
Okay.
Out in the open, sure.
Probably the conclave was probably the last time.
It's been a long time, and back then he could see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot. He's trying to put it down. He's trying to sense it. And again, there's a blurriness to it all that makes it tough. And he'd been aware that Middenheim was a bit different in that he wasn't sensing anything big and washy, and there was no sense that there was giant banners in places. For example, to use the Ubersreich version, there was no sense that there was wolves prowling down streets, which you have expected. And he's been sort of disappointed at the lack of extra stuff that he's perceived. But here, absolute confirmation. They're there. He's just not seeing them. And he wouldn't have realized without his guide. And the palace is kind of full of it. Nice to have confirmation. He's already totting up scores of people, and more are arriving.
Huh?
Yeah. The award giving wasn't expected. It wasn't heralded. Nobody said this is what was going to be occurring. And it appears that most of the court, plus any of the various dignitaries that are in Middenheim, have been summoned. The Graf gave a speech at the beginning about the extraordinary deeds. Jungfräu's Jägers. Jungfräu's Jägers. Yeah. And it's strange to hear that name, a name you sort of made up, being associated with positivity.
Big time.
It's a bit unexpected. But then you hear what's happening. Silver Fan. That means, he's got Lord Middenheim. That means legitimately he is a hero of Middenheim. An actual title.
I'm guessing these don't get given out very often. Nice.
It's an actual title. He's now Father Luitpold, the hero of Middenheim.
Nice.
Do yourself a cool test.
All right with that? Yes, 6 successes.
Yeah, his face is stoic if he wishes. But
yeah, he could be stoic. He could be cool.
Yeah, he's looking cool. The speech goes on, and it's sort of droning on in the back of his head. But there is a host of other things also running through his head. It's been a tough few months, but it kind of feels like maybe it wasn't all wrong. Maybe the mistakes weren't necessarily mistakes. Maybe this is a good outcome. And his mind is running round in circles. Luitpold thinks a lot. Others often take it for judgment. But often he's just thinking.
Yeah.
He's a relatively deep man. And it's the very thing that caused him the most trouble.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the kind of lightning intellect that
Yeah,
Gerhard
absolutely.
has. So therefore he does sit there and slowly...
And he mulls. And it gets him into trouble. It got him into trouble. Got him out of the Order of the Torch because he thought he had a better way of doing things. They disagreed.
He did have a better way of doing things.
Indeed. I'm not saying that his conviction is correct one way or the other. I shall not lay judgment upon it. I will merely say he thought he had a better way of doing things. Others disagreed. But here, it's turned out right. Orphan boy done good. And in your mind, you sort of skip over the bit where you move from where you were to standing before Boris Todbringer. It's not that you weren't conscious as you were going through it. It's just your mind was elsewhere. And then suddenly you realize, no, actually, I'm standing in front of him. He's right there. The Grand Duke of Middenheim is right there.
I mean, it's no biggie. It's like 24 hours with him yesterday, you know?
Yeah. This is fine.
There's something I meant to ask you during our last stream. I didn't want to derail things. But in the past, when Luitpold's been in the presence of a runefang,
there hasn't been a single mention, and no call to it in the slightest.
Interesting.
I did not call it out.
Maybe it's a fake.
It is.
Even when he drew it.
Yeah, even when he drew it.
There's something funny going on.
There is. And there you are before Boris. Boris Todbringer pauses, looks around his court, and then he does what might be described by some as a challenge. It took a bloody Sigmarite to see what you couldn't. Now, some of you might say it's because it was a Sigmarite plot. If that were the case, what's he bloody doing here? Off to the side, you can sense the bristling disapproval, not of the court, but of the princess. You see, sense, feel Boris turn in her direction and then calms and says, so, it is only correct, moderating his language somewhat, that we recognize the success not just of these fine people of the Empire, but of the Order of the Silver Flame, who saw through to the very heart of this particular assassination plot. Now you all know that Father Luitpold here is of said order. And in turn, and indeed he does, give you silver. Nice. Turns out he doesn't. He gives it to some person at the side.
Yeah.
He comes in.
He's not going to touch a commoner. Like, what?
He does it. And you can feel the tension behind the court behind you. As he looks out upon them all. And underneath his breath, he says, fucking right. Fucking quiver. You shouldn't have been able to hear that.
No.
But you did. Yeah. Yeah. He says under his breath, I fucking love you all. I will fucking have you all.
Is it fair to say Boris is back? Is that?
For good or ill.
Yeah. Yeah, one way or another, he's back.
All it took was a good assassination attempt to get him out of bed and get him annoyed. The rest of it passes in a relative blur. You're really tired still, which is slightly surprising. You remember all the wolves howling when it was pinned on your breast. White wolves. You remember that the previous morning, well, earlier in the morning, you were told you could see the flame. And then you just get sort of ferried around a little bit. As the court is dismissed, nobles begin to chat. Birdie hikes out into a back alcove somewhere. Alameda White typically does exactly what she always does. Vanishes from your life.
Was she ever even here?
She might have been there. She might have. You know, she got pinned something on her.
Or did she?
Yeah, that. It's all a bit of a confusing hubbub. And he sort of wants to get away from it because he needs to clarify his thoughts, center himself, pray, meditate, figure out what's next. He's aware that celestial wizards are trying to do stuff. He's aware that they've been tasked to find him. He's aware of stuff. He needs to speak to everyone, find out what needs to be done next. It's almost like it's re-clarified all of his thoughts. But he's a deep and thoughtful man, and he's aware of his own both certainty and lack of certainty on things, and also aware that all of them have received this. Sometimes he disagrees with them. Where was the rightness in all this? And perhaps an answer comes to him rather than him seeking it out. He gets taken back to his chambers, and his first thought is probably something like, can I go get some other people here so I can talk to them? Figure out what's going on. Bring in Gerhardt. Get Ulric in. Get everyone in. And before he even has an opportunity to make any requests, there is at the door, his first thought. He is who he is. Step. And before he's taken the third step, someone else has answered the door. Of course.
Servants. Yeah.
Of course.
Gerhardt would never have made that mistake.
Of course. What's even more interesting is he didn't sense the servant moving.
That's alarming.
Who's he?
Like,
it's like he's blind.
Yeah, but more like genuinely from like a personal safety perspective, he's concerned by that.
It's just
he feels like more vulnerable, perhaps, than he's felt.
Yeah. And at the door, you hear, because you may be relatively deep into your room, you got pretty good hearing. We're here to speak to the Father Luitpold, says Cultists Sigmar. And then you hear a reply, look, I understand that, Sir Knight, he says, but it's not up to me whether you can see him or not. It's up to him, so you can wait out there. Yes. You're not at Temple now. This is Palace. And you listen to me, Boris. He says, you listen to me. This is my land, not yours. Fuck off. Bang.
Again, I'm going to do a little cool test to see whether he sparks at that. Yeah, no, he's cool.
That doesn't mean you don't need to spark.
No, he won't, because he's trying to remain
He's
mostly stoic as much as he can, but inwardly he'll be smirking. He doesn't necessarily want to give away that he heard that. So, yeah.
As the servant comes over and says, there is a knight from the Temple of Ulric. He says, likely here to respond to the Graf's wishes.
Oh. And we'll do show him in.
Says, I will. Goes out. You get the door open. He'll see you. Says, don't bloody frown at me. It's the palace. To call. Got to do things right, don't you? Get out of my way. No, you can follow me. You get a good sense of a far bigger man and a far littler man in front. You're aware of him because, boy, does he move quietly. You feel,
he's just a beneath notice talent, like manifested.
As Knight says, Brother Boris, he says, Temple of Ulric, I've been sent to fetch you. I hear you're pissing off tomorrow.
I believe we have more work to do tomorrow, yes.
That being the case, if you want to see Flame, now's the time. If you don't, well, we offered.
Sure.
Now. Right, this way.
I'm going to lose that fate point I just got. But
he walks along in silence, goes down the stairs, down another set of stairs with you coming along. Servant behind you, shit, says, since you're leaving Palace, my lord, father, pardon me, we'll wait for your return. Down at the bottom of the stairs, the knight stops and says, you need guide, given you can't see.
That would be helpful.
He whistles. And along comes someone relatively big, muffled, wearing furs, you think. And he says, here, give father a hand. He says, certainly will. He says, do you want arm or shoulder?
I'll put my hand on your shoulder if...
He says, here. And That was my wedding ring. Never mind. Sorry, Lindsay. As you make your way from there down to the temple, it's about a half-hour walk, and it's altogether too hot. The sun is baking today. Fortunately, you're just wearing your robes. They're relatively light and airy. I feel sorry for the poor bastards wearing their full furs, because they're going to be feeling it. And indeed, by the time you get there, the big one is whoofing a little bit. He's feeling it. It's been mostly downhill, but nevertheless. Yeah, you've got sweat on your brow. Chap in front of you.
Although probably not the blindfold, probably works a little bit like a headband.
Yeah, just soak up a good bit of it. Stinky. As you're then taken into the core complex of the High Temple. It's funny, because as you're coming from behind it, you can sense the flame there, and you go past it, and you go around the walls, you go around, and you can constantly feel it there.
Can I ask you something that I didn't ask
Yes.
before? When we were underneath at the other flame, yeah, he felt this flame.
Yep.
He never felt that flame as being the same thing. He
Absolutely.
That's fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. As you make your way around it, and then go into the central core courtyard at the front of the temple. This is several orders of magnitude larger than the Sigmarite equivalent that sits opposite the palace gardens. I mean, that's a big temple. It is. As Sigmarite temples go, Middenheim's one is big. This is almost a town within the city. And you can sense all of the folk. And it's different here. Really different here. Almost like a blindfold's been taken off. As you pass over the threshold, and suddenly hundreds of souls burning, devout, certain wolves, unfurling banners. You can almost hear the wolves. You've been blinded. Interesting. Confirmation. The proximity of the flame has somehow lifted that, done something to it, but there is something blinding you, which obviously, for a blind man, is certainly something, but it doesn't hit you suddenly. It's a proper gradual move from the can barely feel them to it's all swimming into.
That's probably good, because
perceptual focus.
If it did hit him suddenly, that would probably be overwhelming. Yeah.
And then at the heart, you can feel the flame up ahead. And as he lifts his hand, he's close enough now that he feels the chill. I mean, he's far from it. Yeah. It's in that building over there, but it's enough that, yeah, he can feel the chill. Oof. It's about 5 minutes, crossing over, and you just join the queue. It's a day after Carnival, and a lot of folk are doing a little short pilgrimage to the flame before they leave. And in Luitpold's head, he can't help but smile, because in his mind's eye, the flame at the far end, and a big long queue up there, and a big long trail out. It's a comet. With the burning flame at the tip.
And the two tails.
And the two tails. Yeah, another cool test. Not to look like a gibbering muse maniac.
6 successes
again. You're
rolling well on the cool test tonight.
An interesting insight. You can sense the flame, and it's blazingly cold against his face now. The wolves and the furs that they carry suddenly don't seem so excessive, even though it is a burning day outside. There is a great vaulted chamber above. Steps lead up to the main area where it is. The cold. The people. They're all talking about things, but the cold. He's reminded. Being back in the High Temple of Sigmar in Middenheim. Not long after he'd been inducted. And along with 4 other novitiates. Because it's not the biggest chapter. Being told a story of Ulric being wounded. It's an Ulrican story. one of the odd things of their chapter is they teach the Ulric Creed also. And in this particular tale, Ulric had been badly wounded. He had been facing off against the North. The North is a euphemism for pretty much anything to do with the ruinous powers. But he had been facing off in the North, and it was near the end of the Great Wars with it. In that, soon he was going to win. You knew this, because that's the way the tales go. But it hadn't happened yet. And he'd come back here, to this spot. And that tale comes up in your mind, because in your mind, when you listen to it, it was an ephemeral place. Now it's there, and a little bit like going to the place of the Shining Rock. It's quite different being in a place to reading about a place. And now you can kind of imagine it. Ulric, who, according to the Ulric Creed, the tales in there, looks nothing more than just a big man. It's how he walks the world. Dark hair, big, burly bloke.
And according to some stories we've heard recently, he's still doing that.
Yeah, very possibly. I mean, that's what the children of Ulric believe. And he went into the flame to burn away all of his wounds. And came out. That had played upon your mind a lot when you were younger. You half thought you could do it yourself. Messiah complex, maybe? I'll be fine!
I mean, he will say his experience in the Demon's Bowl has very much put him off the idea of stepping into mystical portals.
When he was younger!
Yeah.
But now he's got experience. And now he knows that this sort of thing is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
He gets closer and closer, colder and colder. He hears this like cracking of a bit of ice as a bit of sweat goes by the edge of his brows. Freezes, breaks. Rub. And then, like a lurch in his belly. Quick test.
Just one success this time.
As you step forward, the voice in the back of your mind says, yeah. The knights have been escorting you in the entire way. Others have been discussing things. You've been lost in your own thoughts of old tales.
But this is, perhaps a timely reminder that his earlier augury suggested there were chaos cultists in here. And they may belong to the cult that we wiped out beneath the city, or they may not. So let's just be aware of that.
You take another step and says the voice in your mind, careful. It's another step, another person makes their way around in the top.
Because there's multiple threats here. There's the threat of there might be cultists. There's also the spiritual threat that having heard what you may have experienced.
And then the voice says, no, we're safe. And Luitpold is left to his own mind. It was, of course, speaking Old Worlder.
Who knows what that means? As if I would ever keep a secret like that.
And as you get closer, the hypnotic movement of the flame shifts, burns, freezes, and it takes an endurance test to approach the last few tests to make the way around.
It's crit.
Oh, sweet.
Do you want total successes?
Yeah.
It was a 33 if the number matters.
Nice.
And so that's 9 successes.
Sweet. As you go forward, and you have an unexpected sense, welling almost, of confidence. You were concerned about even coming here, half expecting to be jumped. But having had the confirmation, it just feels safer. You take the last few steps up, and you're now free to either walk around, drop down, pray, do whatever you fancy.
Well, Sigmarites don't kneel when they pray.
No, they don't.
So stand up and pray, I think, would probably be a good...
This causes a bit of a concern for those behind because they want you out of the way.
Is there room for him to step?
There's more than enough room for someone to move past you if they want.
Well, that's it. Well,
They can do so.
They can do so. I'm blind.
They
They can make the reasonable adjustment for me, not the
Exactly. That's not going to stop folks from
grumbling.
Yeah. And indeed, some do. Some squeeze by. One squeezes by altogether too close, trying to make a really shitty point that really is not worth making. You, however, can do a pretest.
It's passed. 3 successes.
You done well. Boy, done good. You're feeling confident. And you are in front of the flame as a Sigmarite. This is noteworthy. In your robes, as an order, silver flame cleric.
And I'm not being a dick about it
No,
either.
you're not.
Like, deliberately, I'm not antagonizing the Ulricans, because...
You just breathe through the moment. There is no point in being bad. You've done your thing. You can now go out. Your pilgrimage to Middenheim is complete. You go out the other side, down the other tail.
There's a little part of me like, should I attempt any of my like augury related stuff? I don't know. Like, I don't know what for. Like, don't know why he would. Like, visions wouldn't really work. That's about somebody's, future, their fate. That's not really applicable. You could do an augury on it, but that feels A, like that might be disrespectful, and B, if he gets a bad answer, that's not necessarily going to tell him anything he doesn't already know / suspect.
And there's a certain amount of, perhaps not his mentality, but a certain amount of, if you don't stir that hornet's nest, then he can stay serene through this moment.
Yeah. And also,
this is a benefit for the
PR.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to muck it up from PR. But there's also, from a very practical, pragmatic perspective, it may be that there are cultists in this temple, but they're only human. They're not, and they're just not here right now, which is why there's no threat in this room. But if he has a vision, it can overwhelm him for minutes, hours potentially, and that would leave him very vulnerable. Yeah. Potentially in a nest of cultists. He might get swept away to where the cultists are, and so
big point.
Yeah, let's not stir that hornet's nest. Let's actually
take what happened to poor Birdie when she visited the Temple of Shalia. Stop.
Or Yume and Elemental when they visited this place. So yeah, let's not repeat that. It also will be particularly funny if I manage to get out of this unscathed after Yume's experience.
Down the other side of the tail. Having gone up one side, down the other. And up ahead, at the periphery, between the dark of the inside of the temple, bathed in its argent light that you can't quite perceive, for you it's just freezing at your back. You can see the souls ahead of you. Sigmarites. They have come to watch.
Nice.
Their attempt to do it on the quiet does not appear to have succeeded. And there is a lot of silence. Bristling silence. None of them are transgressing. They're all out there. You have permission. Apparently our Ulric got talked to. Apparently it's a thing. As you are led slowly but surely towards them. At the front of that particular party, a voice calls out, Father Luitpold. And immediately, before you can reply, a wolf says, he's our bloody guest. He is our guest. You are not. Back away, please. I said, please.
Is this still inside the temple grounds?
Yep, he's well within the temple
Yeah.
grounds. It's like the main part where the flame temple is, and the temple grounds extend far into that.
Yeah.
You're just in the periphery.
So literally it's coming out of the building where the flame is actually in. Right.
Absolutely. As you hear, I recognize your authority.
I don't recognise his voice, do I?
He says, I can wait. And then the knight says, fancy a beer?
A beer would be lovely. Very kind of you.
And off they are to the right.
Well, there's also a small part of me is worried that Sigmar might also be a wrong one. Yep. So, yeah. Although if I recognise their souls as Sigmarites,
who's to say that they're not something else?
Yeah.
The thing he has learned is that Sigmarites might think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And they might not be.
Yeah. I mean, his vision was quite clear that it was cultists of the ruinous powers, but they could be tricked into being cultists of the ruinous powers, like the Ordo Septenarius.
Absolutely.
A similar situation.
I mean, he's learned how easy it is to accidentally fall without even knowing.
It could be a mystery cult within the cult of Sigmar that are secretly.
So Father Luitpold ends up drinking beer for a good couple of hours in the morning with Ulric, Boris, Ulric, Heinrich. They could not have more Middenheim names if they tried.
I love it.
They are all very aware of what they're doing. Sticking it up to the stuffy Sigmarites.
Whereas I'm just being a gracious guest, embracing their hospitality.
Get you you're all right, Father. He says, I ain't got no trouble with Sigmar. I got trouble with the fuckwits. He says, those who go around preaching and burning folk. I got trouble with them. Those who run away when you challenge them when they're dishonourable. Got trouble with them as well. You're all right, he says, as he offers up his stein.
Come that.
He says, our Ulric told us you were a hero. You got marked there. Not many folk get that. So what happened?
Yeah, it saved the Graf's life.
So what performer test does he have?
Well, he's got both rhetoric and storyteller.
Storyteller's the one you want. Perfect.
6 successes.
Sweet. There is nothing like performing Sigmar's good work inside a temple of Ulric. They listen away to your story.
Excellent. I mean, depending how many of them there are, I could go for a public speaking charm test. But
not that many. Not that many. No, this is perfect.
And I know it doesn't exactly that, but I also have inspired.
Yeah, that's for
leadership.
Yeah, totally.
Certainly, he's good at projecting his voice. Is all I'm trying to.
And they listen because they don't actually have the gossip. They don't know what happened at the palace. They don't understand how security could have fallen so badly. They are horrified when they find out that knights died. Several of them. One of them even marks, I don't like the cats much, but I mean, you got to say something. If they were dying for him and they got through, it's a witch. There's not much you can do about that. No, there's not. I won't lay that at cat's feet. Brave men died. Brave men died. And state soldiers, it wasn't a simple affair. It wasn't somebody snuck in, wasn't challenged, collapse of security. It was a very powerful individual laughed at their security and murdered his way through it. And the tick, tick, tick of time was just out for him and just in for you. Perfect! The wolves eat it up. They're always happy to hear a good tale. And you've told a good tale. You have allowed them a brief insight into what it was like to be inside the palace on that night, and it was actually terrifying. Magic of extraordinary proportions, suddenly wreathing and wrapping and
he definitely, within his story, will be making the point that this evil witch was a cultist of the ruinous powers. Won't be using the Reichland word at all. But will make a point that within it, that everybody will acknowledge that everybody contributed in the fight and that our wizard was incredible, kind of, countering and all that kind of stuff. But that, the crunch was when Luitpold pulled the Graf away from the witch, and then Gerhard von Jungfried saved his life. You know, my Lord Doctor ministered to him and stopped him from dying, and kind of really just, you know, a little bit pro Reichland propaganda, you know, just a little bit to offset the like tsunami of negative Reichland propaganda that will be coming from the palace. But yeah.
Just as you're getting really quite comfortable, having necked a few bottles, I'm feeling really quite good about the whole affair. Stein's now beginning to sit empty, a pile of cheese and bread half eaten. Priest walks in. You can tell. No armour, no extra weight, light, but you can still feel the bristle of that beard. He's definitely a priest. As he says, "Oh, Father, you're causing problems by being here." He says, "You've got a delegation waiting for you. High Capitular himself is calling." Oh.
That's not, I mean,
not good to leave him waiting, but equally didn't think he was here.
I didn't realise. Yeah, I didn't intend to cause a scene. I was merely...
No, well, we're quite happy with the scene. He says, "I'm just warning you now that when you get out there, you're likely to get a rollicking."
Yeah. Well,
one of the knights outside says, "Don't you mean bollocking?" "Oh, no, we're being polite. It's a rollicking."
Or indeed a rollicking bollicking. Well, now that I know the High Capitular's there, I didn't believe he was in town, so I should probably pay my respects.
"No, you shouldn't," he says, and pulls out a bottle and drops it down. He says, "You should have a drink with me because you're a hero."
Oh, may it be rude to deny your hospitality?
Exactly my thinking. He says, as the knight smiles and says, "Oh, you know, you're a bad man." He says, "Well, you know, it's High Capitular. He and I had a tussle about 2 years back. Gave him a bloody nose. He didn't want to fight. So I punched him."
Did he fight back?
"He did." "Oh, he did. Would you like to know exactly how it spun out?"
Oh, go on.
A roll for him. He also got 6 successes.
Nice.
So he spins the tale of when he met the High Capitular. It starts when he's 5.
Wow.
"I'll admit my memory of him isn't that grand," he says, "but then again, he were about 7-year-old and he kicked me in knackers. Who'd have thought? Werner Stoltz himself, High Capitular, started off as just kid from streets right around here."
Does that match with what Luitpold knows of Werner Stoltz? I thought he was a noble. Okay, well, I'm not going to accuse him of lying in his own temple, but yeah. Interesting.
Child on the street, so he was. And a bully. A proper bully. Me and my mates pulled him down. I was maybe 9-year-old when that eventually occurred. He was running with a little gang of folk, so he was. At the grand age of about 11. He'd been doomed. That much is certain, because he'd been boasting about it. How he weren't going to die until he learned to fly. Or some such. I remember it quite clearly. He was soaring around with his arms stuck out from either side. Like, you know, he was going to learn how to fly. Load of nonsense. But we caught him by ourselves, and we gave him a right kicking. Because he were a bully. And we survived the lessons that he taught us. And we taught him a new lesson, if you know what I'm saying. Didn't see him again until maybe he was in his 30s. Oh, he was a priest then. And he turned to his books. Considered himself an intellectual, so he did. Tried to talk me down. So I were having none of that. Because I knew what it was, well, between you all here, I knew what lay underneath that face that you were wearing. A bully. So I started him off. And once the blood was flowing, he lost it. He just lost it. He had to be pulled off me. Broke me arm. Worth it though. I just sat there going, "Told you. This is what you are." He were lying to everyone, and they were horrified. He got summoned right the way back down to what's that place called? The capital.
Altdorf.
Ah, that's the one. Altdorf. He got summoned all the way down there, you know, where the Reichlanders are and all that. Because he weren't having it. He came back round Temple, right here, actually, shouting and hollering. He wanted to take me down, that sort of thing. Caused a bit of an embarrassment for himself, for his temple, and for everyone else. He got himself summoned back. Still don't understand why just a few years later he would give him bloody temple. Took control of the whole thing himself. Where's the sense in that? So I went round. You can imagine it now. Let's, he says, set the scene. It's in the depth of winter. And I do mean the depth of winter. The snow's piling high everywhere. Even the most sloped of roof has this big wedge of snow stuck upon it. And all the sweeps are out trying to keep the streets clear. There's salting everywhere. And I trudge through that. I mean, it's winter, isn't it? There ain't nothing else happening. I were a white wolf before I took my vows. And I went up to Temple. I were drunk. Oh, we're very drunk. And outside Temple of Sigmar, with bottle, I issued challenge to High Capitular. Shouted it out, so I did. Come on out! I might have swore a bit. Might have given him some rather ungracious names. Which he deserved. He broke me arm, didn't he? I'll admit, I might have enticed him into it, but that don't matter. He were trying to be something what he weren't. The man's a killer and a bully, and he pretends he's not. He were in right place. Well, he didn't come out. Probably didn't even hear me, so I stormed the place. I mean, it's the Temple of Sigmar. There's not so much to storm. I just went in the gates and it was all sort of empty. I mean, we're in the middle of winter. No one was in there. So I stormed and I was shouting away. I was drunk. Some of the knights say, oh, I've seen you that drunk. So I shot it. So I was drunk, charging around looking for him. So I ended up doing a piss in one of the confessional booths. That got them out. I thought it would. I thought it would, but it did. They came out and they were all, you know, Sigmar, and he won't like this. And I was like, Sigmar's got a problem with it. He can come and talk to me himself. Unless you're Sigmar. And they started trying to ferry me out. I started shouting, and he came to me. And he was like, no. He took me up to his rooms, full of books everywhere. Were a bit of a surprise. And he sat me down and he said, it's not like we were when we were kids. We can be better than we were. And I said, so why do you lie? I was drunk, admittedly, but nevertheless, why'd you lie? Why'd you claim all these things? And he said, because it got me to be High Capitular. And I wouldn't have been otherwise. And I was advised to by a good friend of mine. I was like, what good friend of yours? And he says, do you remember old Tom? I did, he's dead now. Well, he got wrapped up with Cult of Ronald. I was like, oh. And he said, how are you best going to get the people of the Empire together? Is it by telling the truth and getting nowhere? Or is it by telling them all that you're a noble? Telling them all that you were a lost orphan on the street? By telling them all that you are a proud individual who's in control of your anger? That a sad tale. I'll get nowhere. So I decided I'd listen to him and I just lied to everyone, and here I am. I know that sounds like Ranald's work, said I. Said, you're a filthy fucking liar. He's like, I am that. What of it? I'm High Capitular. You're a knight. That's it. What more do you want? So we shared a drink and I punched him in the nose. Right at end, punched him proper in the nose. I went, you deserved that. But it did get me thinking. It's one of the reasons why I became a father. Why I moved from being someone who was all about swinging my armor to someone who was talking it out a little bit more. Because it got me thinking as to Ranald, as to the other gods, as to what it is to be a Sigmarite. And how all too often folk get caught up in their own little corner. 2 years later, he was doing a speech over on Grafplatz. And there were hundreds around listening to the tale of Sigmar passing through flame. And he wouldn't have been there if he told truth. Now, he hadn't sinned in Sigmar's eyes, but he had sinned in some other eyes, so to speak. He'd lied, and I'm sure they found out. Says there would probably be trouble for him, but he's High Capitular. There's only one man who can sack him. And I remember sitting there watching him, looking up at him, going, fuck, I think you might be right. Who's to say that walking in the path of Ranald is not a better way of achieving the best result for Sigmar, or Ulric, or Verena? Which is why I'm here, telling you now, he's looking after you right now, and I'm happy to undermine any authority he might have concerning his particular unique, let's say, background, his quality. He's come from the street. The very worst come from the street. Murderer. He killed folk. But, you know, he doesn't do that anymore. Neither do I. He says, Middenheim. It's a tough city. It's a tough city. You better go out to him.
Yeah. Thank you for everything.
He raises his cup, taps it on yours, and says, you did right, by the Graf. If you have the opportunity, you tell him that he should have wolves in the palace. They smell things that the cats don't. And he's resistant. He doesn't want to have spies in his palace, but he's wrong. Now, they might not have made a difference, but they might. Politics is getting in the way of good thinking. Won't be the first time, it won't be the last. I'll escort you down.
Thank you.
That means, if you want to play it nice, you can just blame me for keeping you. You'll believe it. He says, this way, father. And leads you down. You won't be allowed back here, you know.
Guess I'll have to do some other great heroic deed, right?
Then father is your mark now. He knows what you look like. He won't let you back in at all. He doesn't like his temple being breached, so to speak. Just so you know, if you come back, you're going to be turned away. It will take quite an heroic act. He's likely to be next to our Ulric if Valgeir can't keep it in place. And he's made some mistakes recently, so... Politics. Here's the man himself. High Capitular. Capitular stunts. A man who is blessed by Sigmar. As you get closer to him, you can sense it. He probably can't. It's interesting. You moved into a different place to him. There's a part of you that doesn't know if you should tell him. He is going to ask about your eyes. What's the chance that a Sigmarite would try to take advantage of an augur, of someone who hears Sigmar? Yeah. He's been concerned more than once that he might just get nabbed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is his first real potential concern. But hey, he's a hero. He's got places to go.
Yeah.
And Boris rules here. He calls out. Ah, Father Luitpold says, good to see you finally made it. Ah, of course. Father says, hey up there. He says, oh, you've been in fight. Your nose looks a bit crooked. No, I've not been in any fights, Father. Father, we should go. He says, oh, he's been a fine guest. He's been all the way up to the flame. Just looking at him. Quite the order for your order. Let's go, Father.
High Capitular.
Looking forward to our next drink, Luitpold. He says, looking forward to our next drink. Off you go, you craven fucker. He says, go on, piss off, Capitular. Bloody hells. I hate that man, you know. And you hated him last time we were here as well. I still bloody hate him. Bloody glad I was here, though. You see his face. Oh, it was so stuck. Oh, it was hard not to have a shit-eating grin in his... Oh. As you move out of earshot. And are seen over to a coach. Oh, you're getting coached up. The initiate opens it up. You are taken in. So what happened to your eyes?
I lost them.
Pause. You lost them. That's
Yeah.
obvious. What happened to them?
They were burned out.
Your eyes were...
I can show you if you don't believe me. It's quite horrifying, though.
No, well, let's have a look. God, did you do that yourself?
From a certain point of view.
You did that yourself. Oh,
Can I ask when you got back into the city, High Capitular?
yesterday morning.
Can I ask about other residents of the High Temple?
What are you to ask about? He says,
I'm going to speak plainly. The High Temple's been infiltrated by cultists of the ruinous powers. Amongst them, the preceptor.
raises his eyebrows. Well, you're not mincing words, are you? You've changed.
Well, there isn't time.
Preceptor. You any proof?
Yeah, witnesses. Witnesses observed him ordering and then confirming the assassination.
Reliable witnesses?
Very reliable.
Who are they?
2 members of my party.
Heroes. Who are they?
Menowith
No.
and Sume,
I don't know her.
the daughter of the Nipponese ambassador.
So that's certainly not for an accusation.
And they signalled someone beyond the walls, confirming that it was done.
What was done?
That this ranking Templar was assassinated. I suspect they had a Hawklander, perhaps.
Philip. He died 4 days ago, I think. I was told about that when I arrived. You're saying that the preceptor is responsible, not the high preceptor. You don't know.
I don't know. I believe it was whoever was most ranking.
High preceptor, most likely.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Did you really get involved with the Templars?
Yeah, like I presume. Well, I presume from the context of the conversation they overheard, it was whoever was most ranking in the temple, because you weren't there, and this person who was murdered had arrived, bringing news of a village out with city walls, which had fallen. That he'd witnessed a child consuming a beast man, like eating
A child.
A child. This was the urgent news. He felt the high preceptor said he should, because you weren't here to tell him that he couldn't, he should go to the palace to tell the Graf. And as he left,
The Telegraph.
he was shot, killed, and the High Preceptor, assuming that's who it was, used a mirror to signal to someone beyond the walls. Job done.
Mirror. That isn't what I was expecting to talk about. I had other questions, but
Well, the reason I mention it to you is because I don't particularly want to arrive at the temple and not leave. Perhaps if we want somewhere safer, I have an apartment at the palace just now.
let me consider it for a moment. What you say is, I assume you can understand, obviously inflammatory, and it seems so very unlikely.
Nevertheless, it's true.
And the facts do add up. In that I know that someone died, I know he was shot. And you have become a very reliable witness, as have they. Heroes of Middenheim. That is. But I just can't imagine that he would. What matters? It's just not him.
It may be that he's not necessarily fallen directly to the ruinous powers. In the plot that we unravelled as we moved towards saving the Graph, we encountered some who had simply fallen, some who had been replaced by a demon, and others who were being blackmailed by cultists.
I have some questions. I'll resolve this. They say it was a Reiklander who's responsible for the assassination. Is that correct?
I mean, he's from the Reichland. I wouldn't say he was operating on geopolitical grounds.
Understood he wasn't.
He was a cultist of the ruinous powers.
Regardless.
He had a bound demon.
God.
He performed dark magic.
That won't help. The cult of Ulric has been saying for months that the Sigmarite cult and that Reichland is riddled through with demons.
For what it's worth, there are also cults of the ruinous powers in the High Temple of Ulric.
Oh.
I don't know who, but I know they're there.
And how do you know they're there?
Well, as I say, I know, but I don't have proof.
Oh, this is awful. Were you, from what I gather, you were in the presence of the Graf for almost a full day. Is that correct?
More than a full day.
Was there any indication that he might be considering war?
Well,
retaliation?
As you know, there's already war afoot in the Reichland and in Middenland.
I'm quite aware of that.
I believe it's only a matter of time before Middenheim gets involved.
So he did.
I heard Karaberg is being besieged.
That's been broken.
Which way?
The right way.
Which is?
Well, not the rebels.
What?
God! He's going to use this as an excuse, isn't he? Well, that makes the news that I'm carrying particularly difficult. Because, obviously, Karaberg was relieved. They have reaffirmed certain allegiances and just signed a treaty of mutual defense with Reichland.
To Middenland have?
Yes. All it'll take is one soldier crossing over into, I don't know, Helstein, and that's it. Reichland's activated. Or alternatively, moving to Altdorf and Karaberg comes along with the rest of Middenland, and the Helsteins will like that.
Given the tensions between the Helsteins and
I'm
Torbringers.
quite aware of those. Been trying to advise the Helsteins against this for months now.
There are also something else that may be a little grit in the eye of the Helsteins. Another member of my party is a bastard of that family and has just been knighted and indoctrinated into the Knights Panther.
A Helstein in the Knights Panther.
A Helstein bastard.
In the Knights Panther. They pay agitators to talk against the Knights Panther most weeks. Down in the streets. They hate them. Obviously because they support the torturers. Oh, it is a irritating piece of grit. Father? And we apparently don't have that much time to reminisce and discuss. No, you're coming with me. Let's find out if he's actually a traitor. It says. Don't draw it, but get your hammer ready.
What was his?
I suggest that you pray. And he does. You hear him mumbling. Give me the strength of self-control. Far quieter than any should be able to hear. As the coach arrives. As he does, he sticks his head out and says, just stop here. Now, please. I'm not going to accuse him in front of anyone else, but you're coming with me. And he heads over to the complex of buildings over at the right-hand side as you're making your way in. That you know are the chapter house for the Order of the Silver Hammer, in particular. The witch hunters of the Order of the Silver.
And this matches where Alamenowith and Sume told him.
Absolutely does. As he walks over there, immediately, there's several bowing down. He just walks straight past, goes in through a side door. And then, in almost no time at all, he's just banging on a door. An initiate answers, Father? Oh, High Capitular, I mean. And you hear from inside. Oh shit. And he says, I trust the High Preceptor's in. I'd like to speak to him now. I'll just see if he's in. There's only 2 rooms here. Don't be ridiculous. You know he's there, and so do I. And he just pushes through. I just and a voice from the other side goes, High Capitular, I didn't expect to see you so soon. We're not due for our meeting until tomorrow. Says, yes, well, some things have come up, and I would like to confirm them. You, out. There's a nod. Good. And he just walks up, steps right in front of him.
Can I make sure the person who's left, can I make sure they don't just lurk at the door?
How would you like to do that? Would you like to close the door and listen, or would you like to leave the door open and then kick the little fucker down the stairs? How would you like to proceed there?
The second, but maybe not kick the little fucker down the stairs. Perhaps just like tilt my head so it's obvious, and then hope that they then turn around and run away.
Yeah, that's enough to send them off, and they weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then lean on the door.
Looks up at him and says, I have it in rather good authority that you are craven. Pardon? Says, that you are craven and have whispered to the ruinous powers. Who is it suggested such a thing? He turns round, looks at you, putting his back to him as he's looking out, pulls out a dagger, turns round, stabs him straight in the chest, and then he goes to town.
Just to be clear, the High Capitular is...
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
High Capitular.
I mean, it does seem like that Ulric and priest wasn't telling a lie.
And then flips it, catches it, and starts stabbing him in the face. And then bellows, traitor. Cool test.
I mean, I passed, only just, but I passed.
How many by?
I did no successes, just a
What
pass.
stress? That's fair.
See the stress from the night of all the shenanigans, is that gone?
Oh, no.
None of that's gone.
No, none of it's gone. You've got to have days of like peace.
Oh,
Man.
I thought maybe one of them might have gone after that one.
Oh no, you had a really good night. I'll let one go. No,
yeah.
no.
So,
that was good.
I'm back up again. On
Yeah,
board.
totally. Bam, 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 bam. As he stops, and he just goes, ah! Fuck in my own temple. And then turns around, looks at you, and with his back foot goes, squelch, brain, eye, mess. You wish you were more blind than you were.
At least I can honestly say I didn't see anything.
Sigmar blesses us all in different ways, Father Luitpold. I have been blessed to see the truth with my men.
That is good.
Not good enough, Father Luitpold, because he has been under my wing for 2 years, and not once did I catch it. Tinted blood clatters to the floor. Fuck, they're the witch hunters. Now I've killed one of them. It's probably an unwise choice, but it was the only one that could be made.
We do perhaps have an opportunity.
So bang, bang, bang on the door. Tell them to fuck off.
Fuck off!
And a call from the other side says, High Preceptor! I'll tell them to fuck off. She opens up the door. Long, tall man, gaunt, hat, buckle, Sigmarite. Comet sitting there, looks in and says, High Capitular. Did you not hear what the father said? Get down those stairs and start praying. I was writing a letter to the cult of Ulric. Men are going to like what I have to say. I'm going to have to be honest. You are certain. Certain. And I'm not going to write to the cult. I'll write to a friend, Emil. He's the Grand Master of the Knights of the White Wolf. He's a good man.
If you can arrange a private conversation, I suspect I can get Ulric to listen.
I can't. He won't meet with me.
We could perhaps lace a message with certain clues that might incline him to have a meeting with us.
I'm listening.
Out of discretion and honor, I'm not going to give specifics, but let's say that Ulric had done something he shouldn't have.
No. I do not want to have any negativity attached to what is going to be an accusation of his cult harboring cultists.
Of course, all I was going to say is I personally secured and destroyed the evidence of that to stop it coming to light. But I don't think he knows that.
I shouldn't like his dishonor to be known.
No, exactly. And I wouldn't necessarily want it to seem threatening him with it. Nonetheless,
if you ever fall, I will do worse to you.
I believe you.
I am so angry. I missed it. To my face.
Can I ask what called you from Middenheim at this time of year?
Grand the Orchardist. He'd met with our Ulric. And I'd caught wind of it and I went down to try and peaceably resolve the matters.
Was that after the Grand Theologist had been at the place of the Shining Rock?
That's where they met.
Because I encountered him there too.
Did you speak with him?
Briefly.
What did you say?
I can't remember. it would have made a more lasting impression on Luitpold.
Hardly didn't make a huge one.
I didn't expect
it. More just glided by. Nothing important.
Yeah, there were other distractions taking place. Yeah. There were other metaphysical existential threats at the time that were distracting me.
He goes behind the table. Goes, oh no, I can't. Anything touched might be tainted.
We also, my friends who witnessed the assassination noted that when the individual who was assassinated, the body and the sort of sacred relics he was bearing were swept up.
It would have been a part of his order, his responsibility. Gonna have to clean house, yeah. This was reckless. Very reckless. Well, we've got rid of one of them, Father Luitpold.
I got rid of another one already also.
Well,
I've forgotten what his name was.
which one?
The priest. Luitpold's friend who tried to murder him.
Oh, Cripes, yes. Oh, I'd actually forgotten that you'd resolved that.
Yeah.
Down there, his name escapes me for the moment as well, because now I'm on the spot. Father Franz. Let's call Franz for the moment.
It was something
it's
like
not.
that.
It's in this.
It was something like that.
It wasn't that. But it'll do for the moment.
Yeah.
As he goes, two of them. Really, him?
Yeah.
He's only been in the order for 3 years, but
everything seemed to be fine. We were following a lead. We discovered a warehouse down in the pit that was the wind.
It was down the wind.
Down the wind that was selling animals that were clearly mutated, tainted, corrupted, all sorts, and were in turn funding the very cult whose leader attempted to assassinate the Graf.
And he was involved with this, which means he was involved with that.
Well, yeah, he attempted to murder me. My novitiate, who is now sadly also passed away, saved my life. He dealt with the priest, and then between us, we dealt with all the cultists in the warehouse.
Goes over, looks at the mangled corpse, and spits on it. Fucked everything up, you. Why? He was a devout man. Why?
Well, perhaps, and I'm of no use here, but perhaps somewhere in his papers there may be some clue.
Perhaps.
You would be amazed, as we've travelled the Empire unravelling the plots of various cults, you'd be amazed how often they leave incriminating letters lying around.
Arrogant. I wouldn't be amazed. The fools. They always think that they're immortal, that they'll never be caught until the very moment they are, and then suddenly that trail unravels because they're no longer there to cover it up. My larger issue is there's probably 5 witch hunters down there who currently, if they find out what I've done, will accuse me of witchcraft.
Should we call them up here one at a time?
I have no authority to do so. They may not listen.
Invite them up one at a time.
If they see it, it will turn to conflict. And they are probably good Sigmar-fearing men who understand the importance of doing what is right. I am the murderer here. And whilst it might be easy to say, well, just explain it to them.
Well, I take your point. I've been in your shoes.
I've been in their shoes. And often reaction comes first. I'm considering the more ignoble option. He walks over to the window. They're open. And shouts, I need a priest! Looks back at you, shrugs, calls out again. Go fetch some from the temple! We need the high priest here anyway. He needs to make a judgment on this. This is his temple grounds. We only borrow our chapter house. They borrow this chapter house. I outrank him completely, but that doesn't mean it's not his ground. He needs to make a judgment on this before they make a lethal judgment, as I have just done. I'm completely in the wrong here. This is not how you're supposed to do things, Father Luitpold. This is not how you're supposed to do things. He looks over it. Shame. Folds his arms. At least they didn't do it with a hammer. There's a call from below. High Capitular? Yep, can you come up, please? Is the High Priest there? And there's a... No? Shall I fetch him? Yep. And another voice from below. High Capitular? Is there any reason... sorry. The windows. I'm not responding to this frightfully well. It's not often you just murder important Sigmarites in their rooms.
No.
I need a drink. I don't want to drink any of his drink unless it's tainted. It's about 5 minutes later when there's a knock on the door. Find out if it's him. It is indeed. Elderly gentleman, his hair greying, thinning on top, bit of a bald spot. Wearing his long Order of the Torch robes, trimmed in this case in gold. Little hammers at the side of his cassocks. Silver hammer around his chain. High collar. I believe you called for me.
My priest says.
Right, get in here, please.
Shut the door.
Eminence, what is it? Says, I've just murdered High Preceptor because he was a cultist of the ruinous powers. What? What have you done, Werner? He comes in. Oh, fuck. There's the silver hammers? No. Nope. He looks at him. Are you certain? This one identified him. His companions had identified him. We couldn't do anything about it. You just have to... We could have taken him to court. Find out. Questioned him. Found out who his accomplices were. Yep, we could have. We didn't. He's dead. So, we have... How many witch hunters? Maybe 5, 6. Yeah. I don't want the word to spread. Especially if there are more of them in their ranks. So I want them arrested. Yep. I want them arrested, all of them. That's surely within your orders. Remit? I mean, I could detain them, but... I mean, they might fight back. Be swift about it. Are you certain? He comes forward. Have I ever seen you wrong? Ever? Well, no. I walk in Sigmar's grace. Now, I make mistakes sometimes, but I did not make a mistake in this. This is why I'm here. Well, suppose I'll be arresting some people then. This is not how it's supposed to be done. Well, it's been done. Done's done. No point dwelling. Looks over at him. You. Right. Off he goes. Opens the door and closes it behind him. It's just a matter of waiting now.
Yeah.
Yes. And indeed, it is. It's about 10 minutes when the kerfuffle begins. And, oh, what? In the name of Sigmar! Ah, okay, get your hands off me! Ah, ow, ee! Started, let's go out and see if they require any help. Turns out they don't.
Good.
However, there is one downside. The clippity-clop, 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 galloping of one that gets away. See if they're a good thing or a bad thing.
Are they close enough that I can do an augury of them?
I'm going to let you do it, but they're not really close enough you can do the augury, but I'm going to let you do the augury as they're galloping off and you can't see them, but they're beyond... Because they're within your senses?
Yeah.
But they're not within your line of sight.
What I'm trying to get a sense of essentially is that a cultist running away?
Yeah.
Or is it just a Sigmar running away?
So, do your augury.
It's pass. So yeah, like 3 successes.
And Augury's result does against
Basically,
your...
good, bad, neutral.
Yep, good, bad, neutral. Bad.
Ooh. Well, I'll convey that. I think that one that's get away might be a cultist.
Shit. Go. Where's the knights? Says, they're doing the processions just now. High Capitular is Mr. Regular. Says, now! They're up on horses, and off they go.
I mean, should we go with them? Or
How well do you ride?
not well at all. Is it an advanced skill? No, it's a basic skill, but my agility's not great. I mean, not well, but I've got good senses.
Oh, no. I do not recommend it.
Okay.
He says, I'm not going to do it. Let's go back in. I will roll for them, though. Off goes that guy. In comes that guy. And that one.
Well, bear in mind we would have had time to chat. Luitpold would also have reminded the High Capitular about the sniper.
Oh, yeah.
Just to make sure that our guys don't get taken out by the sniper when they try to chase their guy.
The High Capitular has an office. It's his office. Off to the side on the High Temple of Sigmar. It's full of books, edge to edge. Sit down. Done a good job. Who'd have thought? You know, there was a discussion actually with my preceptor about you. Thought you might make a bit of a witch hunter. Maybe he was right. But regardless of the outcome, because he was right, you're clearly in the right place. You're an augur, aren't you?
I mean, literally just do an augury in front of him. Yes, I am. I meant to ask about that, actually. I find it very hard to find records around Sigmarite divination. I used to use bones. I had the bones of a saint that used to focus my augury, but
Use bones.
But they've gone. They disappeared, were consumed in a bad augury.
At the door. He's got away. And Terence is dead. What happened? Turned round, shot him. And then he cast a spell. Fuck. Witch hunters. Round the rest of them up. Pardon? Oh no, you're not going to do that. I'll stay here. He goes off. He comes back about half an hour later. Well, this is completely fucked up, Luitpold. What an absolute mess. The old High Capitular got the job before I did. He was a good man. We discussed him briefly before. He was old. He had a lot to say. He didn't like me. He didn't like me because he considered me too rough. Ready around... How did you put it? Rough and ready around the edges or something. He always said the same phrase again and again. He didn't like that I'd been picked up and ennobled, and just didn't like it. But I always thought it was an advantage. It gives you a certain clarity of action. Sometimes you just need to get the thing done. No matter how messy it is. We've added 2 of them now. And you've got another 3. I'm gonna have to go to the temple myself. I can't write this in a letter. I'll only speak to Emil myself. You have done us a great service.
I've done my duty.
Praise be to Sigmar. So terrible have things become, that devout men return so easily. He was a friend. I don't even understand how this could possibly have happened.
There were others in Bergenhafen. Some of them had fallen in truth. Others thought they were doing the right thing, thought they were part of a charitable organization, thought that the rituals in which they were undertaking were nothing more than positive things that would bring wealth.
It's also this. Tosses over a piece of parchment. Of course. Yeah, that's not going to work, is it? He says, takes it back
I
again.
can only really read holy stuff.
Can you?
I can still read this. Tap in his prayer book.
That's good. That's good. It's one to post it for you. 5 crowns. 5 crowns to turn you in. City of Bergenhafen. House Rugbroder.
Rugbroder. Were they one of the other houses? I think they were, weren't they?
Maybe. A long time ago now. Months.
5 crowns. But it's also for the rest of my party, or just me?
Oh, this one's just you. Quite distinctive. I'd recognize you from this. The hair.
Although
The blindfold.
my friends were at the Temple of Ulric and heard tell of another priest who very much fitted my description, who apparently was there and was overcome by
It's
some
the
condition.
blindfold. I wasn't sure it was you.
Yeah.
Now I've seen you. Yeah, this is pretty distinctive.
But I only say that it certainly wasn't me, and yet the description entirely fitted me. Is there anyone else in our order who
Tall,
tall?
blonde, with similar hair? Yes, several. This is Middenheim.
And I don't think the story said blind, did it? So, because it would have been before. So, yeah.
God, what a mess. But we should be thankful. Have you considered going to Altdorf?
Have
They
you been
need
there?
guidance in Altdorf.
Have you been there recently?
Yes, it's where I was headed, although I met folk on the road, but yes.
There are foul things afoot there.
And perhaps that's where they need you most.
No, I'm needed where I am.
Oh, golds. He reads back. Hero of Middenheim. Ritter of chaos and temples. Needed where you are.
If I hadn't had the vision around these temples, I would have come here and I would have been shot. I knew it marked my death to go to either temple.
Well, this is awkward. Especially given our reputation in this city just now. I shall leave you to independently do whatever you can do in that regard. You're staying in the palace. Who knows what ear you might be able to bend. The Temple of Ulric needs to be cleansed. It has to be. I'll speak to Emil. Emil will talk to me. I met him a long time ago, before I even joined the Order.
Was Emil the one who was with me?
No. Emil's the Grand Master of the White Wolf. He's a good friend. He wouldn't admit it, but he is. That will hopefully at least start the conversation. You need to sit down and tell me everything. How much are you going to tell him?
About everything.
Is there anything you would prefer to? Let's not go there. Or are you relatively open with everything?
I think relatively open.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's going through like the sort of the big broad picture, right? The fact that there are multiple cults afoot attempting to do various things which all result in destabilizing the empire. The fact that I'll give him probably most of the details about Bergenhafen. I don't think there's anything you particularly want to keep quiet there.
That'll also explain some of the news he's heard.
Yeah, he's very much not going to talk about Marguerite and that stuff.
Probably wise.
Because he doesn't want that, so
because that's a whole.
Yeah, we'll just generally avoid that. We'll tell him about demons.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he believes there's potentially 2 active, one of which he inadvertently played a part in discovering, and then something else then awoke it.
The Order of that Boar.
And the fact that what's up with that? This is where I begin to get confused in terms of our side streams, in terms of what we know and what we don't know. But in one of our side streams, there was a strong implication that the Grand Theogenist may be.
I'll leave you to decide what you want to pass on about that.
Well, what he'll say is that, based on visions, he had reservations about whether the Grand Theogenist wasn't perhaps being influenced. However, when he was in the presence of the Grand Theogenist, he didn't feel any corruption from the Grand Theogenist himself, and indeed he felt Sigmar was quite angry that he would even suggest such a thing in such a sacred place. That being said, he was aware of the entity he thought was perhaps was moving outside, so he doesn't know what that means.
Yep, seems good.
But also, he doesn't.
Nice, non-judgmental position to take.
And he does know that there are, 2 shape-shifting demon entities,
possibly,
or potentially just one. Potentially that one was the one from Bergenhafen.
Yeah.
So, but that
there's a shape-shifting entity.
There's at least one, and if there's at least one, that may suggest that there's others. That all that's going on. Is there anything else?
How about the overarching prophecy stroke moving towards another incursion of chaos?
Yes, that absolutely. The fact that we're in the end times, and because that's a point of why he needs to stay independent, because he's like, essentially, me and my crew are specifically attempting to stop the end times because we have certain advantages, but that requires us to,
or if not necessarily stop the end times, then stop the various cults that are attempting to destabilize the empire from destabilizing it before the great hordes attack, so the empire can stand strong and hopefully repulse it.
Exactly. Essentially, either delay the end times or make sure we're better prepared for the end times.
Stop the cults from doing cult shit.
Yeah, very much do that. We'll talk, I think, very openly about the tensions between the Ulricans and the Sigmites and the problems with that, and how that feels like that's being deliberately stoked, and what we can do to improve those relations. I don't know, but that one thing that, if I am unable to exercise any political influence on this, that perhaps he is the fact that it would mean a lot to the Ulricans for there to be wolves in the palace.
That's up to the graph.
Well, yeah, quite. But if there were any scope for us to make that happen or contribute to that happening, that might earn some goodwill between the cults. Potentially even just publicly lobbying.
A good handy download and a swapping of questions and clarifications.
Things he won't share. He won't share what he's learned about his parentage, obviously.
Seems wise.
He also won't share Julius's theories about the blessed priest of Sigmar.
Also seems wise.
He won't share details of the voice that's been talking to him in his head recently.
I think that's also wise.
Nor the language involved.
Although
who knows what that language is?
Yeah, exactly.
Not me. Honest gov. So none of that stuff. But I think, other than that, Oh, you know what? You know what he is going to share that you might think he might not share? But he will ask Werner to swear an oath to keep this secret.
And what if it's an essential piece of information to share in an essential moment?
Okay, to keep it secret unless you earnestly believe that. I trust your judgment on
Tell
this.
me.
There is a second silver flame beneath the silver flame.
Beneath it.
Far, far beneath it. And he will recount that like what the fuck it is, who knows? But that it's way down there. It was protected. It's probably not protected anymore because we might have blown up everything that was protecting it in order to save it. And we'll explain how there was a cult and we wiped that cult out with a massive explosion. But that blew the door up and it blew up all of those undead magical guardians. Now maybe they've reformed. We haven't gone back down. It's very hard to get to with all of the things that are underneath there. Also, he's not going to at any point explicitly talk about Skaven, obviously. However, if at any point he gets the vibe that then it would just be a nod, but but if
there's no real anything.
No, that's good. That's good.
Because
they're probably listening. Yes. No. But I think given our responsibility as an order for protecting the silver flame, like perhaps our holy order isn't to protect the one above the ground. Perhaps it's to protect the one beneath. I found it. I had an augury at the right moment that led us directly there, bypassing all of the dangers, which enabled us to get there and lay a trap and protect it. And I wonder if perhaps that's our sacred duty, protecting that flame.
I'm going to give you a new initiate. I've already heard that you're under the Graf's order. Presumably to trace down the attempted assassin.
Yes, his blue wizards believe they know where he is.
Yeah, well, I have some people in the guild. Apparently the word is that they are in a great deal of disarray, because the word is that they might need to go into the rock. And they don't want to. Which means you might be going back down.
I believe we are.
Then I wish you to take on a novitiate, and I wish you to teach him the skills that you have learned in hunting down these cultists. He's a cartographer. Find the flame. Because if it needs guarded, that's what we will do.
I mean, how complex was the route back out? Was it even more complex the way we came out rather than the way we went in?
Yeah, the one coming in was actually surprisingly easy because you skipped a huge chunk of it by somehow surviving what should have probably killed you drop. Gods are with you, man.
Yeah. Almost
the one up, because you just went a single route. Not that complicated, but so many junctions.
Yeah.
Which means that you found it easy, no one else would.
Well, I'm just wondering with his like navigation and stuff, whether
he probably wouldn't get back down there, but if he was following an augury, he might. Yeah, quite.
And certainly whether he could begin the process by going like, well, I don't think he can navigate that far.
I think it'd be a little bit like to give you an equivalent. You once had a hike from Paris to Berlin. So you once had this hike. It's a pretty big way in the dark. And now you've got to describe how to get there with no compass and no way of showing which way's up or down.
So I could probably get the first bit in Paris and the last bit in Berlin.
You walk out that way and there's a hole over there and then it just spreads out in a great fan. I think that's accurate. You'll have a starting point and then it's just, and then after that there's a whole lot of potential horror and nightmare that somehow you avoided.
Yeah.
Thanks God. Sigmar's the best. He got you through it. Good. You've been busy. You've been busy. Goes under his desk. Pulls out a chest. First, says, you might find this useful. I'm sorry to say, not as useful as you might think. Not as useful as perhaps you want. I'm not sure. But you might find this useful. Throws it over. It clatters as it lands. Sounds like dice.
Dice?
Yep. Dice. Knucklebones, as it turns out. Marked as dice. I'm at work.
I take it they don't glow the way that his bones used to.
Nope.
I mean, I could try.
Hmm.
Shall I try?
If that's how it works.
Yeah, I guess he'll attempt to. Well, I mean, we'll simply know whether I even get to roll a dice. He'll attempt a divination.
Here we go.
Well, if I'm allowed to roll it, yeah, because I'm not even allowed to attempt it without tools. So.
Mm-hmm. They're useless.
Oh no! Well, do these count as divination tools? In that case, it's a critical.
Oh!
But you will love what the critical is.
It's an 88.
It's an 88. Which would have been a fumble if I didn't have the...
Roll
but
again.
because I do. Do you want the total successes?
I do.
So that is 14, 15 successes.
And divination does, again, so we have it clear. On a crit as well.
Sorry?
On a crit.
On a crit
too.
as well. So I get 2 divination rerolls, which I'll just make a note of, because they last until I use them. And I get 2 certain facts. I suppose the question is, what was I kind of divining? I guess I'm trying to divine
The location
how
of
best to
where it is.
protect and to get to and protect that silver
2
flame.
certain facts.
Mhm.
Currently, no, I'm going to go with a different one. I quite like this. Oh, he's done a divination. Clatter, 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 clatter. The dice spill out, and it all makes sense.
Peppy silver.
As you look at the numbers marked, inscribed into the bones, one of them a little skull head, relatively crude, and another, and they form a shape. Flame is guarded. There is something down there. So it's not as dire as it could be. Certain fact number 1.
That's good.
And I will add to that fact that it's dangerous. So if you want to go poking around down there, you're potentially in danger. Certain fact number 2, that should the flame extinguish, it heralds the end of the world. That's a big certain fact.
And his concept of flame is the lower flame.
In this instance, yes.
Yes, because that's specifically what he was thinking about. And it may be that they're connected, and
Could
so
be.
the distinction is irrelevant. But yeah. Ooh.
So important.
Wow.
Again, as is often the case with these things, there's interpretations.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty dire divination.
Yeah.
As you can...
And it's possible. It's possible that there's something down there is that big spirit thing.
Yeah, the big hunter thing.
But as we saw, it is possible to circumvent that by going down the small tunnels.
You did circumvent it.
Yeah. So it may be that. Yeah. Well, I think you'll pass that on. I think you'd be like, yeah, that confirms it. It is important.
Worked.
Yeah.
That work.
Are these the bones of anyone in particular?
Yeah.
Would you mind telling me who?
So, ad story from a Ranelden priestess, Renald blessed. She used those bones. I met her when I was very young, and I found out she'd been murdered. By this point, I was a High Capitular. So I joined a team that was responsible for tracking her down. Watch was sent on it. Knights Panther as well. She was a local figure. And as far as anyone knew, the only true representative of Renal City. She had those dice on her. And they were scattered out. And there was a little note. And the note said, "Give them to the blind man." That's it.
Huh.
So I thought I'd give it a go. And it seems that she was right.
So it seems she was a seer.
I doubt it. She wasn't blind.
Well,
Renato's mysterious ways, though.
yeah.
Who could say for certain?
On that, do you know much about the cult of Renald as it is now in Middenheim?
Nothing, as far as I'm aware, there isn't one.
Yeah, it appears to have been forcibly pushed out by the ruinous powers.
The last I knew was her. And as I say, I knew her when she was younger. And I'd met her for dinner a few times. She was nice. We chatted. She liked to tease, really, I suppose. I was horrified when I found out that she died. But she intimated to me that there was no one else other than her. And that others that had tried to make the way up the causeway had decided that they'd rather not.
No, that's fair. And you think she was murdered?
Oh, she was murdered.
Do you know who by?
No idea. We didn't find out in the end.
I
Could be related to what you're about.
I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. Yeah.
Well, this is all frightfully grim. It says, "You have done exceptionally well."
Thank you.
You have done exceptionally well. Go to the refectory, get yourself some food. If you're leaving tomorrow, it says, I'll see you before you go. I need some time to think. The refectory. Why, you've been here a lot. Strange. Bump into a table that isn't in the same place that it used to be. It's odd that your brain automatically tried to avoid the place that it was before. You weren't blind then, but still it was sort of
The habit
programmed into
yeah.
your mind. You dine alone. Relatively simple fare. A watery stew with some meat. Wooden spoon.
Stew.
Contemplating everything that has unraveled. There's nothing like feeling like you're on the right path. That is sometimes felt slippery.
That's it, exactly. Like whether things are unambiguously good or not isn't the important part. Again, it's always about walking the path for Luitpold. He's walking in the right direction. And that's
As Bernard Stoltz himself said, sometimes you make mistakes, even when you're blessed. It's not about those. It's about the things you do right. The moment when it matters.
Yeah.
And when it mattered, did the right thing. You're Hero of Middenheim. No one seems to care or know. I mean, why would they?
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't even know where Silver Claw was. You wouldn't have known. Not what it looked like. I mean, you'd heard of it. Yeah. Being a Hero of Middenheim, you'd heard of it, but that's not the same as that thing that somebody might be wearing. Yeah. You're just a priest, a blind priest at that, passing through. You finish your food, have a little bit of prayer and contemplation. Take a look up at the big empty throne, center of this high temple. Supposedly Sigmar will one day return. It's ornate. You know that once in the past, this one used to have a wolf beside it, but it was removed. The visiting Grand Theogenist thought it looked a bit too Ulric.
Out of interest, just thinking what happened in the chapel of St. Arnold, can he kind of sense where the wolf was? He thinks about it.
Everything's muddy.
He's back to the... It's interesting. It was only in the presence of the flame, but it wasn't.
Yep, muddy. You can sense that something's there, but it's muddy. The high priest sees you as he comes in. Right. finds the whole thing quite awkward.
Yeah, I'd imagine doesn't want anything to do with Luitpold at all.
Sigmar's grace, and he makes his way right back out.
Hi, Father.
Pops into his little vestry at the side.
No. Yeah, that's fair.
Let's just leave that strange order to their own business. Still not entirely convinced that everything is what it claims to be, although the one who ran away did kill someone. That's evidence in and of itself. But it's a horrific thing to consider, because these are people that they know.
Mm-hmm. But equally, if you were going to infiltrate anyone in the temple, the witch hunters are the ones to go for, right?
They are.
I mean, it's exactly like with Sigfeder, right?
Yeah.
And where was that? Kemperbad, was it?
Sigfeder and Kemperbad?
With the people that were leading the burnings were actually the bad ones.
I can't remember which town it was, but yes.
Yeah.
As the High Capitular comes in, sees you, and says, finish your prayers, I'll be with you in a moment. And heads off towards the side, and opens up the door to what you presume is the vestry. You've still never been in there, order the torch business. And you hear, High Priest, where are you? And the door shuts as you hear, damn it.
That's fine. But he will try not to eavesdrop. He doesn't want to deliberately,
High Capitular comes out about 5 minutes later. Stand, Luitpold. Properly, straight.
Thought he was.
You're about.
Okay.
You've been tasked to find that flame. Looks at you directly. What do you know? His head is turned in your direction. High Priest! Apparently doesn't even name him. He comes out wearing his robes. Yes. Says, give it to me. He pulls out a small book. Father Luitpold, you have walked in the footsteps of Sigmar. You have seen that which should not be seen and survived. You have proven yourself worthy to step not only in his light, but into the shadow that it cannot reach. And there you bring light. Flips the page over. The Order of the Silver Flame is charged to protect the Silver Flame. Puts his hand over the page and says, and our charge may be misplaced. It looks back into the book. This charge I grant to thee, as cleric captain of the order. Now.
Yeah, no, a little smile.
Red candles passed him.
Not even though it's red,
but it is.
It is.
And he takes the page and he rips it. And it pours the wax. Takes off his ring, places it on your armor in the front, and seals it into place. With this seal, I bind this order. With this order, you will find the flame, and you will learn how we can protect it. Do you understand, Father Luitpold?
I do.
The priest at the side says, High Father, side. You have been granted orders by your chapter. In turn, the Order of the Torch recognizes your orders and accepts them. If you fail, we recognize that you fail because of the adversity you face. not your lack of will. Your success is certain, he says. Get some sleep, he says. You don't get any fancy armor, he says.
Quit.
But we'll have a hammer sent to you in the morning.
Oh.
Says. Well, we have some troubles with the silver hammer, didn't we? Yes, we do. Yes, we'll have a hammer sent to you in the morning. Keep doing what you were doing. Realize that doubt is good, says. And realize that when you first came to me and you said that you had been punished for what you did in your temple in that town, its name, Sal. Down in that now cursed Duchy of Ubersreich. And you said that you thought that to truly walk in Sigmar's grace was to accept all of the gods. That is why you were accepted by my order, and that is why we did not let the witch hunters have you. They'd have beaten it out of you. I remember when we interviewed you, you have no memory. Literally no memory of him at all. When did he interview you? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. He says,
He was very young though.
yeah.
Like he would have been like, what, 19 at that point? Like
maybe he just had a full head of hair then. I mean,
well, also, he's not really seeing him now.
Yeah,
he may look different than how he looks, you know. He may be an old soul.
I remember, he says, we talked to you, and you had a conviction that we felt could be dangerous. It's why they wanted you. Yes. But it was a conviction that was broader than Sigmar alone. And Sigmar had clearly guided you here. You are on the right path, Father Luitpold. Find out where it leads. Report back. He's a cleric captain.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
He's a hero of Middenheim. Cleric captain. Father Luitpold. High Father. He suddenly realizes he's a High Father.
Oh, is that how cleric captains are addressed, is it?
That's what he called you. You thought he was.
I thought he was
saying
talking
it
to
to
him.
you. You're the High Father. You're High Father. High Father Luitpold.
I mean, with the amount of weirdry.
I know that. High Father Luitpold goes to bed a very happy man. The next morning, a blessed hammer of Sigmar.